Okay, so here it wants us to find the force between this 3 coulomb charge. It says a 3 coulomb charge is 4 millimeters away from a 6 coulomb charge. Find the force between them. Alright, so first things first, we need to make sure that our units are in standard form. Alright, 3 coulombs, check, we have coulombs. 4 millimeters, we need to convert to meters, because meters is the standard unit for distance. So we know that milli is times 10 to the negative 3, so we could say 4 times 10 to the negative 3 if we wanted. And you can plug in that number into the calculator, or you can go ahead and have 4 and the decimal starts there, and you can just move it over to the left 3 to find that decimal, 0.004. So either number you can plug it in and it will be the same thing. And 6 coulombs charge, okay, so we check out there, good. Alright, so find the force between them. So now we are going to use the equation, Coulomb's law, and it tells us that the electric force in newtons, because force is in newtons, is equal to Coulomb's constant, which is 9 times 10 to the 9th, times the charge of the first charge, times the charge of the second charge, over the distance between the two squared. So let's go ahead and set up our equation. Our electric force is going to be equal to, and also here it has Coulomb's constant all out by its lonesome, but this is actually pretty much the same as multiplying all of these 3 on the top together and then multiplying by the bottom. Okay, so here we have 9 times 10 to the 9th, and then times our first charge, which is 3, times our second charge, which is 6, and then that is all over 0.004 squared. Alright, so we can go ahead and plug this into our calculator. And you can type this in several ways. There are different ways to do exponents. You could say 9 times 10 to the 9th, okay, which is going to get you this. Or you could say 9e to the 9th. Either way, you're going to get the same number. Alright, just make sure that if you use e to the 9th, that you're not saying 9 times e to the 9th. Okay? Times is for times 10 to the something. Okay? E is sufficient. It takes place of all of this. So you can just say 9e9, which some people find a lot simpler. Alright, so we can say 9e9 times 3 times 6, and then I would go ahead and enter the whole top together. Okay, so we get this number, and then divide by the bottom. And remember, you've got to square it, so 0.004 squared. And we get 1.01 times 10 to the 16th, and we just saw for our electric force, so that will be in newtons. Now let's try plugging this in a different way. Say we want to say 9 times 10 to the 9th, and we want to put all of these in parentheses too. That's fine. Okay, enter it and divide by, and say we don't want to use the 0.004, say we want to say 4 times 10 to the negative 3. Well, that's just fine too. 4 times 10 to the negative 3. Now you're going to want to close your parentheses and then square it when you're using the exponents, because if you put the exponent on the inside, it might think that you're squaring the 3 only. And we're not doing that. We're squaring the whole number here. So we put it on the outside, press enter, and voila, we get 1.01 e to the 16th, which is the same number. Okay? And you could do it all the top and bottom together. You could say 9 e to the 9 times 3 times 6, and then divide by 0.004 squared. You get the same exact number. Just make sure that you're using your parentheses, and if you have any crazy exponents, that you're using parentheses there. Okay? Alright. Pick a different color. The second problem says, 7.2 microcoulombs, a charge of 7.2 microcoulombs, is 20 centimeters away from a 3.8 microcoulomb charge. Find the force. Alright, so here we have 7.2 microcoulombs, and it is 20 centimeters away from 3.8 microcoulombs charge. Okay, so first things first, we need to figure out if our units are standard. Microcoulombs? Nope, we need coulombs. 20 centimeters? Nope, we need meters. And microcoulombs, again, we need coulombs. So micro actually implies times 10 to the negative 6. And you guys should have that half page of skills practice sheet that has the prefixes there for you. And if you don't, you can pick one up in my classroom. Now, we need to convert these, and we could just simply say, instead of micro, we could say times 10 to the negative 6. So this will become 3.8 times 10 to the negative 6. And likewise, this 7.2 will become 7.2 times 10 to the negative 6. Now 20 centimeters is times 10 to the negative 2. Now we know that 20 centimeters is the same as 0.2 meters, or we could write that as 20 times 10 to the negative 2. Alright, either way we've got the same number. Anyway, so we go ahead, we can plug this in. Our electric force is equal to, and we have our 9e to the 9th, okay, or 9 times 10 to the 9th, it's the same thing. And we can use 7.2, and let's say, this time we want to say times 10 to the negative 6, okay? And for the 3.8, we'll say 3.8 e negative 6, because it's the same thing. Different ways of writing the exact same thing. And then we can, do that really quick. We put that all over our distance squared. So we can say 0.2 squared, or we could say 20 times 10 to the negative 2 squared. Alright, either way, we're going to get the same answer. Alright, so, my calculator. Alright, say 9e to the 9th times, and if you just bump the parentheses up next to each other, it's going to assume that they're being multiplied. We could say 7.2 e to the negative 6 and 3.8 e negative 6. Okay, you get all these numbers, and you can divide that by, and let's go ahead and say 0.2 squared. Alright, we get 6.2 newtons. So over here, 6.2 newtons. Alright, so let's double check that. There are many ways that we can plug this in. So say we don't like the e's, we want to use all times 10 to the. Okay, 9 times 10 to the 9th. Okay, times 7.2 times 10 to the negative 6 times 3.8 times 10 to the negative 6. Alright, and notice we still get the same number, 0.24624. Divide that by, so we want to be difficult, and say times, or divided by 20 times 10 to the negative 2 squared. Alright, and voila, we get 6.2 newtons. Either way, alright, just make sure, guys, I would multiply all your top by together, enter, and then multiply the bottom. And don't forget the squared on this bottom here, guys. Okay? Use parentheses.